good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Education Live meeting. Hopefully you can hear us okay. So my name's Richard Lane from Microsoft's Education team, and I'm joined today by James Prendergast of DMS. So today's session we're going to be looking at deploying Windows 7. Before we do get started, it's worth just spending a couple of minutes to orientate yourself with the console. So if you look at the top of the screen, we've got a toolbar, Q&A. So if there's any questions during this session that spring to mind, if you just click on Q&A and type your questions in, and at the end of the session, we'll put the responses in. We'll answer you via that console in terms of a text-based answer. So the session itself will last for about 45 minutes. We've got a good mix today of both slides and demo. The slides that we are using, you can download via the download handout icon. So there's 3 sheets of white paper at the top of your screen there. So anytime during today's session, if you just go to those 3 sheets of paper and you can download the handouts that we're using today. As always, we shall record this session and we'll make the recording available. We'll send the links out on the education blog next week. So, in terms of today's session, we're going to be covering Windows 7 deployment. And when we look at deployment, this is how we see the traditional build process. So, typically, we'd have a PC that would come into your organisation. An engineer would sit down in front of it, essentially with a CD, and would install, let's say, XP at the time. We'd build it up, we'd put applications on, essentially departmental applications if these new machines are going into a specific department. And we'd then SIF prep the image and then take a sector-based image of that disk using some third-party imaging software, and then we'd push out that image to the remaining PCs that we were going to build. So in the bottom left-hand corner there, that's how that model looks. So operating system and service pack, utilities, office, and other applications, and we're taking an image at that level using these sector-based image tools. So this traditional build process, as I call it, we've been using for years and years, ever since really we were deploying NT Workstation all those years ago. And so it was quite a quick method, quick and dirty, of getting machines out there as quickly as possible, but it was inflexible going forward. So what would happen when a new application came out, or we had to introduce hotfixes and those sorts of things? It was really hard to go back through those images, crack them open, and then patch them accordingly or update those applications. And because they were going into a particular department with departmental software on there, and because it's a sector-based image as well, these images were tied to a particular make and model of PC and to a department. So you'd often end up with a large number of images being supported within a typical school, college, or university. So because we had, let's say, 20 images within our organisation that we needed to keep up to date, patching and updating was near enough impossible, so we couldn't do image management. And these third-party tools, these sector-based imaging tools, we would have to buy them in the first place, and there was often ongoing licensing restraints with those as well. There was also the image size, so all those 22 or however many images we had needed to be stored somewhere. And because this was an engineer sitting down initially in front of a PC and building it, quite often there'd be room for error, and things would start to creep into your build throughout that process. So the session today, really, we wanted to introduce you to a new model, a new way of working for you to deploy your desktop. And this is what it looks like. So we take now a base image, our standard build, if you like, at a very base level, so just the operating system itself. And that's very much a vanilla build. It will just go across all your makes and models of PC within your organisation. So potentially it's possible to get down to have a single image for your entire organisation. And sticking with that, the automated theme, we then deliver those applications, whether they're physical or virtual applications, at potentially the time of deployment. So going with this modular build process, it means we can take any of those components out, a new version of Office, a new application, and deliver it dynamically. But we're not having to crack open images. It's just part of a modular build process. So just to give you an idea of some of the things we can achieve with that, we can go from, let's say you've got a department within your organisation with 50 machines and you want to update all of them. It's really quite easy to be able to update all those machines, capturing the existing user data to wipe them away and do a complete fresh install of Windows 7 and bring that user data back without touching the machine. So that's what we call zero-touch deployment. But that's a long-term goal. Don't let it put you off with thinking, oh, we are where we are now, and getting to zero-touch is going to be a really difficult journey. There's lots of steps and lots of utilities and tools that you'll see today that initially you can just start to reduce the number of images and get a standard build and start off with relatively manual deployments and then getting on to light touch deployments where it's semi-automated and then keep zero-touch deployments as a long-term goal. But just to re-emphasise again, there's many stages on that journey and you'll be able to start getting benefits relatively quickly by adopting this methodology. And most of the tools you'll be seeing today are free of charge as well. We'll highlight the differences where there is a charge and where there's just free tools and best practices for you. So rather than just Microsoft just saying this is what we'd like you to achieve, I wanted to bring in a partner that has done a lot of work already in the education space in the UK. So it's really great to have DMS here today, Design and Management Systems, that are really well-respected Microsoft partner. And here's a couple of case studies that they've done in the education space. I mean, there's plenty more that they have done, but here's just an example. With South East Essex, for example, they updated 1,200 machines in a couple of days. Is that right? Yeah, a day and a half. So that's 1,200 machines in a day and a half, and it's not, it is achievable. It's not something that's really difficult, and we'll see with some of the tools available now. Those case studies, by the way, I've also put those on the handout section, so you can go down there and download those case studies and give them a look. So with that, I shall pass over to James Prendergast of DMS. Thanks, James.
Right, good afternoon. I'm going to start doing from the point of where you start from with your network and really talk about migrating your machines to Windows 7 and the applications and user data and to automate it as much as possible. I've titled it really made easy, and we're breaking it up into three specific sections in the investigation, preparation and deployment. The first thing really is to look at your network and decide what's got to be done on your network. So what do I need to know? I need to know portfolio of machines. I need to know like the physical inventory, the size, the speed of the machines, how much memory you've got, what the roles of machines are, the compatibility of those machines to actually accept the later operating system. I'd need to know the portfolio of the applications I've got on the network and the compatibility of those applications for Windows 7. During our tests, we've nearly found that there's nothing that you cannot run on Windows 7. Microsoft have given you various tools that have made it possible to have applications that are as far back as DOS applications running in compatibility mode on top of Windows 7, either by putting it straight into XP mode or by using the shimming method, which I'll come to later. Right, so what tools are available to actually look at your network and to investigate what you've got? That's the first thing we need to look at. The principal one, and probably the easiest one to first get involved with, is the Application Compatible Toolkit, the ACT. If you install the ACT, you're able to use it to make an inventory of the applications, to analyse the applications to see how many are being used on your network. There's too many schools, colleges and universities where everyone's saying we need 500 applications, but when you further analyse that, you find that very little of them are actually used. And so it gives you a chance to rationalise what you're deploying. It gives you a chance to analyse the operating systems on your network, the patches and everything, to analyse the updates on the machines you've got out there. And the clever part is that when it's analysed, it works out the compatibility for the applications. It will upload this to a central database within Microsoft, and this is shared within the community, so you can get information about how to get older applications working from a central resource. The next tool that's available is obviously System Center. System Center obviously requires a little bit more setting up to do. But once you've got System Center in place, not only will it analyse the actual network you've got running now with all its applications and its compatibility, it will day by day monitor your network and allow you to sort of keep an eye on that once you've actually migrated as well. So it's a more advanced tool, but let's start with ACT. Right. So, you're all flipped over. If we look at the ACT, what do we need? We need an SQL database, and you need ACT 5.5, which we download. This is a quick resume of what happens when you install it. So you select the application you actually want to install. It goes onto the machine, decides that it wants to install. It will then connect to an SQL database, and it will actually install and select a place where you want to actually save your log files. These log files are actually produced by the individual machines on your network. Once you've got it installed and it's commissioned, it will come up and it will look something like this. I will now move over to a demo server and we'll look at exactly what ACT looks like.
Just to say, you can hit the F5 key now. Now we're going into demo mode to give more of a full screen view.
So this is ACT. What it will do is the first thing you need to do is actually collect the data. And the way you collect your data is you click on this collection button here and go to File. And what you can actually do is create a small MSI that you deploy across your network. And you can see you have the facility to start collecting as soon as possible and set the duration of how long you want to collect the data for. It will collect it over the next 3 days in this example, but you can make it over a month, and a month is a good sort of time snap to actually ensure that you get every application on your network. And it will upload the data to a central resource here every 8 hours. Now, so we can actually create this application. You can then deploy it any way you want, or GPO or anything you want, and it will get the central information back to the collection point, which is the ACT tool. You can see here it will actually create information about reports for Windows 7, Vista, and for your Internet Explorer. So it has a profusion of information it will collect. Once it's collected it will actually create reports for you that you can hand in. Now, this makes it look pretty clever because it will give you a full report on Windows 7. So when someone says, what have you got out there, it will give you a report on all the machines. You can see this. It allows you to look at for a proposal, what you want to do with it. So it gives a full proposal that you can hand into management. And then you can actually go into a full assessment, and this will tell you how many machines you've got on your network that are compatible with Windows 7 or require some tinkering before they're fully compatible. You can see that it will give you information on your servers. So I can do it on what is R2 compatible, what is 2008 compatible, what SQL servers need to be modified, which virtual servers, and go down to infinite level of looking at the versions of Office you've already got deployed across your network, running on what machines, with what license agreements, and the full inventory. So obviously you can actually leave ACT running all the time to actually sort of have a full snippet of your network day on day. But in this particular case, we're really talking about using it to analyse your network before the upgrade. So once you've got this information, the next thing to do is decide how to migrate. What tools you're going to use to actually make this possible. Now, Microsoft give you quite a few tools, and of these tools here, the first four, the Wake, the WDS, the Use State Migration Toolkit, and MDT 2010 are completely free. AXV and System Center, I believe our System Center is fairly cost effective for any school or university that has campus or school agreements. Richard can tell you more about that later on. So what does Wake do? Wake is the management tools you need to do to actually manage the new file format for your Windows. So previously, we go back to the machine server again. I'll pop back to this server. Previously, on when you got your CD-ROM with Windows 2003, Server 2003, or XP on it, what you got was wait until that screen refreshes. Yep, there it is. You got a DVD or a CD-ROM with a selection of files that actually you had to install from. And so to modify those files, you could produce an unattended .txt file, or you could actually just install and put files into it. The modern method of actually producing a DVD is you have actually only two files that you actually need. One is a boot.wim file, so the Wim is the new file format, and the other one is the install. Further down here, the install.wim file. Now, all the traditional files that you would be seeing are encompassed within these two files. So anything you need to set on this file, you need to edit. So within the Wake, the first thing you have is a tool that is used for actually modifying and creating an unattended .xml file. So this is this image manager here. You can see that on the right-hand side, and I'll come back to it in a minute, you can actually set up specializations, and you can set up more things within the Windows environment, like incorporating the serial number or what web page it's going to open when the Windows first opens, or whether it's going to join the domain or not. The other thing within the Wake you have is the ability to edit the Wim file. Now, you tend to have to do this if you want to inject drivers or actually change how it boots. I will not go through this in detail because the good part of this is that the later application that Microsoft gives you, the MDT 2010, automates all this process. So you can sit here and do it manually, and I know that some colleges and schools have done it, but they don't. It is all automated in the later products. Let's come back to contents again, and my template. All right, Wake. So the next thing within the tool set you've got is a thing called WDS. Sorry, I'm catching up here. What WDS does is traditionally in the Microsoft, when you press the F12 button, which is the old-fashioned 3-com PXE boot facility, it will connect to a central TFTP server. That central TFTP server has been in the past RIS. This has been replaced with WDS. It is a methodology for getting an operating system or a boot file down to a machine so that the engineer or the end user does not have to be carrying around a set of disks or files with him to actually do any work. So WDS is a TFTP server that's available from Server 2003 Service Pack 2. So if I now go back to WDS, I wish I could get demo of WDS. On a machine, you would press the F12 button on a client machine. What would happen? It would respond, and that response is here from this WDS server. And when you press it, it has the facility to respond with this boot file. Now, if you use WDS in its raw state, you can actually just put WDS in place, put your Windows 7 DVD in your server, right-click, and then select the boot.wim file from your Windows 7 DVD, and it will load it up into that boot image area. And then you can right-click and install the image, and it will load up the Windows 7 install.wim into the installed images. So if you actually go to a client machine and after you've done this and you press F12, it would install Windows 7. But just Windows 7. It would not join it to the domain. It would not have done any other task. It would have done just the base task of actually getting Windows 7 out. Now the other thing that WDS has that is useful, that's certainly useful for advanced networks, it has a pending device area. So I know that some people go around and and start turning off the F12 button on all the client machines because they don't want the random pupil to come in and actually try rebuilding his machine by himself. What happens with the pending device area is that if someone does press the F12 button, you can have it set so it goes in the pending device area and sits there and waits. The ability of that is that it will sit there and wait until someone like a supervisor or administrator says, right, I do want that to go, and they authorise it and it goes out. So if you have a set of rooms and you just want to leave WDS running, you can still have a scenario where the administrator has to authorise before the machines are rebuilt. The other thing it has is the ability to do multicast. Certainly a lot of people out there over the years have been using third-party imaging tools that have used multicast in a big way to get large amount of machines out at the same time. That has been some success with those imaging tools. We tended to break down. This is a far, far better system. With this, you could probably run a multicast the whole of your college or university at the same time, all 1,000 machines, which is pretty impressive. Right, so we talked about the tools that come below, one other set of tools. We've now talked about sort of how you modify the original WIM image, how you actually use, from that WIM image, deploy it out to your machine. So pressing the F12 button, it will deploy out. When you deploy out, what would happen is you would basically see this type of screen. You must have seen it. You allow your boot device, you put a boot device in, you press F12. It will then connect to the WS server and deploy the WIM image. This is the WIM image being deployed down. It then asks you all the questions about nationality, what the serial number is, where you want to connect, how you want to format your drives down. Do you want it on the whole as drive C? But basically, we'll put Windows 7 down from raw, reboot, and at that stage, you have Windows 7 installed on your machine, and you're running. So you've got another part of your network you need to worry about now. I've shown you how you can actually deploy Windows 7, basically. You can use these tools to edit the WIM file, deploy using WDS. But you've got a scenario where on those machines, you could have user data. And what do I mean by user data? I mean data within my documents. Now, if you just scrub that down, some people can get, probably some senior people can get very, very upset. So Microsoft give you a set of tools to actually take that user data off and store it. And the simplest of the lot is a thing called Easy Transfer that you can run one-on-one. Now, I don't envisage that you'd ever use this on your network, but the demonstration of what it does here, and I'll quickly do it, shows you what the later tools, scan state and load state, do dynamically on your network. So Easy Transfer, what it would do, would actually decide to how you want to back up your user state. It would ask you this computer where this is my old computer. You select your old computer. It would ask you what data you want to take up. So in this particular case, it's going to take all the user data and all the shared data up onto the network or onto a USB device. It would actually then copy it onto the network and ask you the same question again, which would be, this is my user data, this is my new computer. So you transferred it onto the network. It now gives you the facility to transfer all that data back onto your machine. It will transfer it back so that once you've got your machine in place, you can have it so that all data is transferred and all their PST files and My Documents are back in place. Now, that's a great tool for one-on-one, and if you've got a particular person you're worried about, maybe you go and sit in front of them and do this and say to them, by the way, I've got your data, don't worry, I'm going to format it down, let's go. But on the network, pretty impractical on 1,000 machines. So what's within the user state migration toolkit is the facility to actually do this at command line. So if I just shut that down, what it allows you to do, you can go to user state migration toolkit. There's one for a 64-bit and one for a 32-bit. You get two tools. You get a device called scan state, and you get a thing called load state. And those two tools enable you to actually scan the machines, transfer the data onto the network, format the machines down, so you can clean the machines down, and then restore all your data. So you have the facility at command line, and this is what the command line looks like, to actually run the application, scan state, copy, on my particular example now, I'm only transferring to drive B, but obviously it could be a network Mac. It will transfer it off, allow me to format down the machine and put all the user data down, ensuring that there's no loss of data. So, right, so at this stage, let's read it where we are. I've showed you a selection of tools that can manage your WIM files, which is a new format of Windows, how it's distributed. The tools for deploying that WIM file out to a machine, so you put Windows 7 on, how to get your user data on and off. But unfortunately, I can say that is all a little bit of a palaver. It's hard to use, maybe. It's a lot of knowledge for you to put in place. So what Microsoft has done, they've created a Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, and this toolkit does this all automatically for you. So given that you actually use this toolkit, all those preceding tools are managed and controlled by it. So the MDT 2010, what it will do, it will deploy operating systems, it will deploy applications, it will deploy drivers, and it is task-based and allows you to prepare applications. So if I move a bit further down here, I'll move back onto a real machine. I'm sorry for jumping backwards and forwards before between PowerPoint and real machines, but I tend to like to show people the real world. So if we go to Microsoft Deployment Toolkit here, and this is what it looks like when it's installed, the first thing it gives you is information on how you're going to do the job, so it actually gets the getting started. It gives you access to all the documentation you need. If you like reading, nice bit of reading till you get through there, quite a few days. And it obviously emphasises the two types of deployment, performing a light touch deployment, LTI deployment, and producing a zero-touch deployment. I'll be talking about zero-touch after this part. It gives you all the news, so it tells you what's currently going on, and it allows you to pull all your components down. So I showed you Wake, I showed you WDS, I showed you all the tools you need. For you to install MDT 2010, it allows you to just see what's available, click on here, download, and then gives you facility, as you can see here, to install all the necessary components you need for this automation service to run. Once you've got this in place and you've installed it, you can actually set up a deployment share. This deployment share can be on this server or anywhere on your network. And then it allows you the facility to deploy applications. Right, so traditionally, deploying applications could be problematic because if you're using group policy objects, they have to be MSIs, or unless you was good with ZAPs. If you was using something like AXV, you had to sequence it, or you physically went round with SlipperNet and actually put the disk in and did it yourself. What this allows you to do is automate the application. And because it allows you to automate the application, it allows you to go on things, and this is a good example, is Microsoft Office 2007. It allows you to install the application correctly, the setup/admin file, and actually have a pre-configured file here to install Office perfectly for me. It allows me to install the applications in sequences that I control. What I mean by that is that if you try and install Office 2007 on early versions of XP, you will find you can't install it because you need MSI Installer 3.1. So if I selected that application to install, I could actually have it so it had a dependency that it needed to take Microsoft Installer 3.1 on before it installed the Office. It also pulls together all the toolkits you need to actually manage these applications. You can see I've got the Office Automation Toolkit here. If I clicked on this, it will enable me to open it up and set the school's name, the university's name, its serial number, whether I wanted it to upgrade the previous installs of Outlook, how I connect to the Exchange server, and preset everything for that installation. So there's the standard silent install for Office. If I was using SoftGrid, SoftGrid is now called AXV. Microsoft purchased SoftGrid. This is a sequencing technology that Richard will be telling you about in a moment. You can see that if I want to put the SoftGrid client in, then I can install an MSI. And again, you can see I'm installing an MSI here. MSI, install it in quiet mode, it will install this application. So I can install applications in any format. And that allows me to, let's go back. If I want to load a new application, what I do is I right-click on here, I add the new application, I take the application here, I put its name in, I put who the application is, I point to the source, and the source will just be the original CD-ROM the application comes with. It will upload it into MDT 2010, ready to deploy. Right, I would now like to, what operating system do I wish to deploy? These are any operating systems I wish to deploy here. You can see I've got XP, Server 2003, I've got Windows 7, I've got Longhorn, Server 2008, Vista, every operating system I want. If I want to add a new operating system, I just open here, select operating system, and it will load it up onto the server ready to deploy. Now, we mentioned earlier, and this is one of the two really, really big plus points about using this methodology, is first, these are base operating systems. I do not have to create a specific image with a new set of drivers in. I don't have to, as in the old sector-based imaging system, have to blow the sector-based image out, load the driver and save it again. If I get new drivers, all I have to do is go over to drivers here, right-click, open, and import a new driver. Straight from the disk that the manufacturer gives the drivers to. You can see I've added a selection of drivers here, they're on the network. So what happens if I select to install that operating system, it will install the operating system and slipstream the drivers in on the way. And because the original image I'm deploying by WDS is a Windows 7 image, it's plug and play. So it doesn't pull all the drivers down I don't need. It pulls down only the specific drivers I need for that machine. I can install packages, and packages are really service packs. There's a service pack, so again, I will install the service pack and the application at the same time. And all of this is task-based. So the big difference between you using a sector-based system and using this is that it is task-based. So if I look at this task-based installation of Windows XP Service Pack 3, I can see that what I'm doing is I'm going to format this down. I can actually decide how I want that formatted down. It could be that I only want it to have a partition of 30 gigs to start with, and then I partition the rest of drive as drive D. I don't have to go into the image and do this. It will be done at the point of deployment. It will restore the operating system. I'm installing partition 1. If I wanted to install 2 operating systems to the same machine, maybe XP and Windows 7, I can select partition 1 for XP and partition 2 here for Windows 7. It will then install the applications. It will then, which I don't know any sector-based system can do, it will then completely tune the operating system for everything. It will set the paging file. It will set where the CD-ROM's disallowed. It will customize the recovery points. It will disable services that I don't need or do need. It will then reconnect it to the network. And if I want, and I spoke about the user state migration toolkit before, it will capture the information off the machine before I deploy the operating system and the applications, and then restore the data at the end. So you can have a scenario that when you press F12, it will take the information from the machine, put the operating system down, install the applications, join it to the domain, stick it in an OU, tune the machine so it's quicker, then restore all the customers, all the users' data, so that after 15 minutes, the machine will be totally built and ready to use. Now, that's the power of this tool. Right, so the next thing we need to talk about is, we spoke about deploying the operating system, deploying the applications. We've really got to talk about the applications themselves. There is another set of tools that are given, and I sort of spoke about a bit earlier on, is the application compatible toolkit. Now that has two, excuse me while I jump from my slides, that has two specific tools that you need. The first one is that if you've got an application that's old, you have a problem where you've got to run it on a Windows 7 machine. Now, as standard, if you don't want to do any work at all, you can actually just say, I will run this application in XP compatibility mode. And what Windows 7 does is really create almost a virtual machine within Windows 7 that you can store the application. They give you a tool more advanced than that, and it's within the ACT, the Application Compatible Toolkit. And what that does, it allows you to create what is called a shim, so that when you install an application, you can actually protect that application from destroying Windows 7 or getting upset by actually creating an intermediate level that will change what that application sees Windows 7 is. And you will see with this here that what it's doing, it's modifying the registry and where files are, and it's looking at what you need on that Windows 7 to ensure, on this particular example, Ghost 3.8 needs to run. Now, if we drop back here, you can see that if we go back to things like the Adobe products, if you go to Adobe CS3 maybe, it was never designed to work on Windows 7. It was really never designed to work on take Adobe 5, was never designed to work on XP. If we click on here, you can see the bits we need to actually install Adobe 5 on Windows 7. To actually install it, what we would do is actually click on here, Run, and it would install the application with all these bits in place. The good bit is that when you stop running that application, that shim comes off at the same time. It protects the operating system from DLL hell and all the other problems you get by putting applications that were never designed for later operating systems. Right, I'm going to do one more bit before I hand back to Richard. I do see the time scrolling on here. I needed to say at the start that all this is based on layers. There's a thing that's said in Shrek, is that this is complex, it's like an onion, there's layers. And this is the same thing, is that you need weight to be able to edit things, you need WDS to deploy the WIM, you need MDT do 2010 to do all the automation. That gives you light touch, the ability to press F12 and build a machine. You can go one step above that. You can install a thing called System Center. And what System Center does, it gives you the facility to do zero touch. And what do we mean by zero touch? It means that what you can do is you can wake the machine up on LAN. So all the machines can be turned off. It can wake the machine up. It can format down the machine, and then it can use MDT in its infrastructure to deploy all the operating system, the application, and you can schedule this to happen sometime in the morning while you're asleep. So when you come in the next day, all the hard work is done. So it's all based on layers. So having got these other things in place and to put your time doing any of it, you do not lose any of that work. You need those in place to actually move up in these layers. So the next thing you can do is you can actually set up System Center. So you can see here what we've done, we set up System Center. We will select to use the Wake Up on LAN facility. We will actually decide operating systems we're going to actually deploy. We can decide, the deployment point. And if we right-clicked on here, we can select the deployment point as being our MDT 2010, which we've already put in place. And there's a wizard for that. We can then say we will create a task, and then we can decide to deploy that task. Now, we can either deploy the task straight away, or in this particular example, why don't we deploy the task sometime tomorrow morning? And with that, I'll move you back to Richard, who's going to talk to you more about the System Center and other ways of deploying applications.
Okay, thanks very much, Tim. So we've talked quite extensively about a number of the tools, a lot of which are free. Configuration Manager is a paid-for product, and what that gives you is a full management system that manages your entire desktop lifecycle, from building them, patching them, and sending out software updates, whether that be physical applications or virtual applications. Desired configuration management, so your machines are configured this way, but after a number of weeks or months, we may start to get variations, and desired configuration management will ensure that your machines are configured how you want them to be. So whether that be settings on the desktop, or whether that be is my Exchange server configured correctly and secure and locked down and that sort of thing. So there's desired configuration management packs that are available for various systems. There's something called maintenance windows as well. So you could say within my university, these different schools have got different maintenance windows. So this particular school could be a Thursday afternoon, a different school could be Wednesday morning, for example. And when you push out an update, an application, or a new operating system, for example, the install will only happen when that maintenance window kicks in for that particular school, that particular department, for example. So it gives you a lot more control in terms of what happens and when. The latest version of Config Manager, so historically this has gone right through the years. It used to be called SMS, but launched back in 1994. So it's gone through a whole plethora of upgrades through the years, if you like. And this is a completely different beast to SMS as was years ago. So the latest version is 2007 R2, but R3 is coming. It's currently in beta. And what that enables you to do, one of the great new features, is power management. So you could say, within my college, within my university, how much power are my PCs using? How much are they costing me day to day? And we get these graphs, as it's showing on the picture there, of usage throughout the day. But we could say, how much CO2 are they using? How much power in terms of pounds are these devices costing me? And quite interestingly, we could say, if I was to introduce this power plan, how much would it save me? So we can start to do forecasting and that sort of thing. And as Jim mentioned, we can do this wake up on LAN as well. So we could effectively have all our machines in our college turned off. We could wake them up, patch them, and have them shut down again in an automated fashion. So we can really start to get savings using this as our management system. Just changing gears slightly, we've mentioned application deployment and the different methods that are available for deploying apps. But one of the features that you may have as part of your existing agreement is the ability to, for a very small cost, get application virtualization. And what that is, and this statement rings quite true, it turns applications into centrally managed services. So they're never installed and they never conflict. So what this means is, let's say you've got all your machines out there that are running currently, let's say, Office 2003 or 2007, and you'd like to be able to deploy Office 2010. So effectively, with AppV, you can push that down. It streams down dynamically to the machines, but they never conflict. So applications, virtual applications, never conflict with anything that's already on the machine. So it's quite possible to have two versions of Office running on the machine, and really it is a great way to deploy Office 2010 really quickly and let people, when they're ready, perhaps they've had their training, for example, that they're happy to start using Office 2010. Applications never conflict with each other, so we don't need to do this extensive testing prior to deploying applications as well. And because they're managed centrally, we only have to update an application once centrally when it's been updated, and it will update everyone's machine for them. Applications follow users around. So if there's a particular class, for some reason the room's out of order, they need to go and use a different room, perhaps in a different department, wherever they log on within the organisation, their applications will follow them around. So, it's a really great way of moving to streamed dynamic applications. But they don't actually install on the machine, but they are running locally. So it's not like a terminal services remote app running on a server. They are actually using the local resources, but in their own virtual bubble, if you like. I've put a link on there, microsoft.com/virtualization. Yes, it is with a Z, sorry. But by all means, go there and have a look at more information on application virtualization. So I appreciate that's been quite a lot to get through today. This is just a summary slide. And hopefully what you'll take from it is there's a lot of time, money, and effort can be removed from your current deployment processes by using these tools. So, our top-end tool, if you like, is SCCM, which will do all of your management. But if you haven't got that and you're not ready to deploy that yet, there are these free tools available that you can get to, light touch deployments with no cost. So, just a summary slide, what PCs do I have out there? Will they run? We've got the Microsoft Assessment Planning Toolkit free, etc., etc. I won't go through all that slide. But as I said at the start, if you go to the handouts icon at the top of the screen there, the slides that we're using today, you can download them. And this whole session has been recorded, and you'll be able to get to it next week. The link will be on our Microsoft Education blogs. So that's been the first of our UK Education Live meetings, but I'm going to make this a regular occurrence, at least monthly. And these are some of the topics that we've got coming up. but I would like to hear very much from you on topics that you would like to see covered. And after this session, I will send you an email round just to really get your feedback on what you've thought of today, but also, more importantly, to hear about what you'd like to see in the future. These are your sessions, and make of them what you will. There's a great resource that I'd thoroughly recommend, Deploying Windows 7 from A to Z by Jeremy Chapman, a guy here at Microsoft, and it's written in really good, plain English that will take you through the tools. So you're an organisation today, you've got XP deployed, you'd like to go to Windows 7, what do we need to do? And it will just go through the tools that we've mentioned today. Microsoft.com/desktop deployment, there's some great webcasts and videos that go through these tools again in more detail. And this is the place you go as well to download MDT, the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit, and some of the other tools that we've mentioned today. If your organisation has taken advantage of becoming a Microsoft IT Academy and you get access to the free Microsoft e-learning, hundreds of courses that are available to you as an organisation, there's a couple of courses in there that are quite relevant. So a couple of collections of courses here, so installing and configuring clients and planning and managing desktop deployment. So as I say, if you are a Microsoft IT Academy, you can go there and you've got access to this free e-learning. If you haven't yet become an IT Academy and you think that may be of interest, the link's there. Go to microsoft.com/UK education, click on the link for IT Academy, and you'll see how, as an organisation, you can take advantage and get hold of this free e-learning for your organisation, and potentially also offer training outside of the organisation as well. The blogs, it wouldn't be a Microsoft Education webcast if we didn't mention our blogs. So if you haven't seen them already, we have them for schools, for further and higher education. We also have a teacher's blog, and one specifically for Live Edu as well. So if you're taking advantage of our Live Edu service, which is free email and collaboration for your school, your college or your university, by all means go there and get more information on it. And if you haven't taken advantage of it already, go there and get more information. So that's Live Edu. So I appreciate that's been a whole lot to take in. You may have wanted to go into more detail, and if you do, by all means contact James at DMS. The email's there and his phone number as well. If you're really planning on deploying Windows 7 over the summer and you need perhaps a bit of consultancy to help get started, etc., by all means go to DMS. They've done it lots of times before already, so they'll really help you get up to speed really, really quickly. So we'll leave it there. I'll stop recording now, but we'll be online now for at least 15 minutes, answering any questions that you have. So if you've got questions now, type them into the Q&A tab and we will get to them. So just to say thank you very much for spending your time in viewing the live meeting today, and have a good weekend. Thanks very much.